All right, let's jump right in. If you're in the hospitality world, you know that the competition out there is, well, it's fierce. Today, we're going to unpack some seriously sharp insights from hospitality expert Maurice. We're talking about how to take your restaurant from just another place to eat and turn it into a destination people will never forget. So let's start with a really honest question. Think about your own place for a second. When your guests walk out that door, what are they taking with them? Just the memory of a meal? Or is it a story, a feeling, an experience? That difference is everything, and it's exactly what we're going to dig into today. And this quote right here from our expert Maurice, this is the big idea. He's basically challenging all of us to stop thinking of our restaurants as just service businesses and start seeing them as stages. Every little thing, from the font on the menu to how your staff greets someone, it's all part of a bigger story. It's a really powerful way to look at your whole operation. Now, Maurice gave us 7 brilliant ideas to work with. And to make them super practical and easy to remember, we've boiled them down into 3 core pillars. Think of this as your strategic roadmap to actually making these changes happen in your business. Okay, first things first. Pillar number 1. Before you can create some amazing experience, you have to know exactly who you are. This is all about carving out your own unique identity in what is, let's be honest, a very crowded market. So building a strong identity is a balancing act, really. On one hand, you've got to be looking outward, seeing what your competitors and the best in the business are doing, but at the same time, you have to look inward and figure out what makes your story, your location, your team completely and utterly unique. Let's talk about that outside inspiration piece. Maurice points to the Narisawa restaurant in Japan. Now, they didn't invent bread, of course, but what they did was they turned the simple act of baking it into this amazing, interactive piece of theater right at the table. It makes you wonder, right? What's an everyday process in your restaurant that you could turn into a spectacular moment for your guests? And now for the other side of that coin, being authentic. In a world where everything can feel the same, local is your superpower. Maurice talks about using these hyper-specific ingredients, like carrots grown in New York's special black muck soil, or taking a local classic like the black and white cookie and just elevating it. So the big question for you is, what story can only your location tell? All right, let's move on to our second pillar. This builds directly on the first one. Once you've figured out who you are, you have to bring that identity to life through your people. Your company culture isn't just some HR buzzword, it is the engine that drives your entire guest experience. And here again, we see this really interesting balancing act. You want to give your team the freedom to be themselves, to have real human moments with your guests. But that freedom can't be chaos. It needs a North Star, a really clear mission that makes sure every single decision, big or small, still feels like it's coming from your brand. Maurice is really firm on this point. Kill the script. He talks about this one restaurant that got hammered in reviews for having these stiff, formal speeches. So they just dropped them. And instantly, the service felt more real. The trick isn't to train your staff on what to say, but to train them on how to read a room, how to anticipate what a guest needs. Trusting them to do that, that's where true authenticity comes from. And this right here, this is that guiding value we were just talking about. According to Maurice, hospitality isn't just a department, it's not just one person's job, it has to be the beating heart of every single decision you make. From the menu, to the music, to the staff training, everything. It's your ultimate secret weapon. I mean, look at this. It's a perfect example of how simple and powerful a mission can be. This is from an award-winning restaurant, to be the most delicious and gracious restaurant in the world. It's not complicated, but it is crystal clear. Delicious takes care of the food. Gracious takes care of the people. Every single person on the team can use that as their compass. It's brilliant. Okay, moving on to our final pillar. So you've figured out your identity, you've built a great culture. Now what? Well, you can't stand still. This last pillar is all about seeing change not as something to be afraid of, but as a constant strategic part of your business. So Maurice breaks this down for us into 3 core mindsets. It's about being brave enough to evolve, smart enough to simplify, and honestly, tough enough to turn a setback into a comeback. Let's take a quick look at each one. First up, evolve without fear. This really just means listening to your customers without any ego. Maurice tells this great story about a restaurant that was told some of its touches were a bit, well, ostentatious, a bit over the top. But they didn't just scrap everything. They listened. They toned down the things that weren't working, but kept this one little interactive magic trick that everybody loved. That's not giving up, that's smart evolution. Second, simplify to amaze. Sometimes more is not more. Sometimes it's just more. One restaurant found that by cutting down the number of courses, they actually made the experience better. Why? Fewer interruptions meant the service team had more time to actually connect with the guests. It's a great question to ask yourself, what could you take away to make what's left behind even more powerful? And finally, adapt. Turn those conflicts into opportunities. This one is all about character. Maurice shares this story of a chef who went through a really tough business breakup. He could have just disappeared. But instead, he channeled all that energy into starting a coalition to help other independent restaurants. He turned a personal crisis into a public mission, and in doing so, showed everyone what he really stood for. So, there we have it. When you boil it all down, it comes back to these three powerful pillars. This is your game plan. This is the strategic framework for not just tweaking your restaurant, but for truly, deeply reinventing it. So let's just run through them one last time. Pillar 1, find your identity. That means balancing outside inspiration with your own authentic story. Pillar 2, build your culture. Empower your team, but guide them with a powerful mission. And Pillar 3, master your strategy. Constantly evolve, simplify where you can, and learn to adapt to whatever comes your way. And I think this final thought from Maurice just says it all. This work is never really finished. You don't just achieve excellence and then you're done. The whole point is to stay on the journey, to always be listening, always be learning, and always be reinventing. So now it's your turn. You have the blueprint from Maurice. Looking at your own business right now, which one of these pillars is calling out to you? What's the first, small, tangible step you can take tomorrow to get started on your own journey of reinvention?